There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't show up on your face, but weighs on your chest at 11:47 p.m. when you open your banking app and whisper, "Where did it all go?" You earned, you worked, you were free, but the money disappeared, as if freedom had fangs. The modern world whispers that freedom means no limits, no bosses, no budgets, no boundaries. Buy what you want, go where you want, be your own master. But Marcus Aurelius said it plainly. Self-control is true freedom. And what if he was right? What if the very thing you're calling freedom is the cage that keeps you broke? Somewhere along the way, autonomy became autopilot. A rush of dopamine from a package arriving at the door, a swipe of a card in silence. A treat-yourself moment that turns into a monthly pattern. You're not choosing anymore, you're reacting. You chase the idea of being free, but your peace is rented out to your next impulse. This isn't freedom. This is fatigue with a price tag. And the currency? Your clarity. There's a term in behavioral science for this trap: present bias. Daniel Kahneman showed how the human mind tends to favor the now, overspending today, overcommitting, overindulging, at the cost of the future self. That future version of you, the one who wanted to save, sleep better, feel calm around money. He gets silenced so that your current self can feel a spike of control. But it's not control, it's noise. Imagine a man in the middle of the ocean, no compass, no anchor. That's how this kind of freedom feels, drifting, choosing endlessly, yet never arriving. That kind of choice becomes a storm. But Stoicism offers a different image. The charioteer. The horses are strong, impulsive, alive. But the power isn't in cutting them loose. The power is in holding the reins, with strength, with intention. That is freedom. Not absence of rules, but presence of command. Freedom without direction is drift. Freedom without discipline is exhaustion. And that exhaustion, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical. That's why so many people feel broke, even with income, because their internal compass is scattered by choice overload, emotional spending, and the loneliness of never saying no. But here's the truth the modern world doesn't tell you. Silence is a strategy. Structure is sovereignty. And discipline, it's how the soul remembers its shape. Before we move into the heart of this video, ask yourself, what kind of freedom are you really chasing? There's a phrase that slips out in the quiet moments, when the day has drained you and the world feels heavy. I deserve this. Maybe it's after a double shift, maybe after a fight, or maybe after the simple ache of a long week spent proving your worth. The phrase feels soft, like comfort, but in the language of spending, it can become a sedative, one that slowly numbs your deeper needs while draining your future strength. I work hard, you say. I earned it. But what if that reward is costing you more than it gives? What if that feeling of relief is just a pause before the cycle repeats? The mind justifies quickly. Behavioral scientists call it the justification effect, a mental shortcut where we defend actions that may not serve us simply because they give us momentary ease. Add to that the hedonic treadmill, where new pleasures rapidly become the new normal, and you have a recipe for self-sabotage in the name of self-care. That expensive dinner, that impulsive gadget, that luxury that wasn't in the plan, they shine for a moment, then fade. And when the shine fades, the silence returns, heavier. But the Stoics had another word for this pattern: indulgence without virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In financial terms, that becomes, if it won't sustain you, don't buy it. If it won't nourish your life, don't call it a reward. Temperance is not about denial. It's about precision, about preserving your energy, your values, your vision, especially when emotions swell. To break this cycle, practice the pause. Write down what you want to buy, and why you think you deserve it. Then wait 72 hours. Revisit your own words. Most deserves expire, not because you didn't work hard, but because the craving came from exhaustion, not alignment. You don't need to punish yourself for wanting, but you do need to protect yourself from mistaking relief for restoration. And that begins by asking, is this reward building my freedom or breaking it in pieces? We were told that more choice meant more freedom. More options, more menus, more apps, more investment tools, more everything. But somewhere between scrolling and selecting, comparing and hesitating, many began to feel not liberated, but paralyzed. The promise of abundance turned sour. You walk into a store and stare at 10 brands of olive oil. You open 5 budgeting apps and close all of them. You dream of 4 lifestyles and commit to none. This isn't wealth. It's a quiet, sophisticated form of chaos. Choice overload is real. Psychology studies confirm that too many options reduce satisfaction. And in finance, that overload comes disguised as opportunity. Multiple credit cards, dozens of online sales, endless financial strategies. Yet each decision fragments your focus, drains your willpower, and leaves you with less clarity than you had before. You weren't lazy. You were drowning in decisions that promised control but delivered confusion. Seneca, with disarming clarity, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Simplicity, then, isn't scarcity, it is structure. And voluntary simplicity is not weakness, it's the power to refuse the noise. To say, this is enough, this is what aligns. That's why the wisest aren't those who chase every tool, but those who pre-decide what matters. Before the month begins, they commit, not to a number, but to a value. Not, I'll spend $200 on dining, but I'll spend in ways that give me peace, not prestige. That quiet pre-commitment, deciding in calm before chaos arrives, is how a sovereign mind protects its integrity. True freedom is not the ability to choose endlessly. It's the courage to choose once, well, and let that choice hold steady. There's a silence that masks itself as strength, the kind that says, I don't need anyone. It sounds noble, stoic even, but often it isn't. It's not self-reliance, it's fear dressed in autonomy. Many who claim full independence are simply shielding wounds of betrayal, of neglect, of not being heard, and money becomes the armor. The apartment paid alone, the trip booked without consulting, the car purchased not for need, but as a whispered declaration, I made it. But did you? Freedom, when tangled with ego, stops being peace. It becomes performance. The freelancer who overspends to prove they're winning. The early retiree whose days are filled with luxury and loneliness. The entrepreneur obsessed with appearing untouchable. Beneath the pride is often a child still trying to prove they're worthy without anyone's help. But the Stoics knew, freedom without virtue is just another kind of bondage. Seneca didn't praise isolation. He praised interdependence guided by reason. He reminded us that strength isn't built by cutting everyone off, but by discerning who deserves space in your life, and where your own ego has colonized too much of it. There is a difference between self-respect and self-importance. One frees you, the other builds a golden cage. Imagine a man in designer shoes standing in an empty house. He left the corporate world for freedom, but now feels enslaved to proving he's free. He traded one cage for another. This is the paradox of modern independence. You escape the system, but become your own tyrant. And the pressure to appear successful becomes a new kind of debt. Ask yourself in stillness, what is my freedom for? If it doesn't bring peace, presence, or purpose, then it may not be freedom. It may just be noise in expensive packaging. There is a tree in Japan, short, curved, trimmed by careful hands. The bonsai does not grow wild, yet it thrives. Not despite its boundaries, but because of them. Its shape is deliberate, its roots are strong, and though it may seem fragile, it survives storms that taller trees do not. Freedom, real freedom, works the same way. Not in excess, but in essence. Not in chaos, but in care. We're told that boundaries limit us, but in truth, they define us. Financial boundaries aren't fences. They are forms. They give shape to your time, your energy, your soul. Without them, money leaks into every crack of anxiety, every emotional impulse, every cry of "I deserve." But with them, something shifts. You stop spending like a child reaching for sugar. You begin choosing like someone who knows their own values and protects them. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What blocks your spending impulse becomes your path to sovereignty. That denied impulse becomes your inner pillar. That pause becomes your peace. One woman, tired of the noise, created a simple rule. She would cut 30% of all her non-essential purchases. Not to suffer, but to breathe. At first, it felt like scarcity, but within weeks, she found something deeper. 3 hours returned to her week. Guilt around money eased. She stopped checking her balance daily, not because she didn't care, but because she finally trusted her choices. That is the quiet fruit of structure. Each week, pause. Revisit your past 7 days. Where did you spend like a sovereign? Where did you surrender to impulse? Not with shame, but with honesty. This is your Stoic Sunday. A soft reset. A return to your axis. Boundaries do not diminish freedom. They sanctify it. There's a subtle kind of exhaustion that comes not from work, but from the absence of rhythm. Always choosing, always responding, always consuming. The freedom to do anything at any time slowly turns into the inability to rest. You wake up already tired. You spend not out of joy, but out of habit. And the silence you hoped freedom would bring is replaced by noise, notifications, temptations, transactions. This is the hidden cost of a life without filters. When every path is open, none feels sacred. When every desire is valid, none feel fulfilling. You are not broke because you lack money. You are broke because your attention is being spent without return. And in that burnout, many mistake busyness for purpose. But Stoic freedom was never about doing more. It was about needing less. Morgan Housel said, "Freedom is the ability to wake up and choose stillness." That line is simple, but surgical, because stillness is not idleness. It's clarity. It's the power to not act just because the world is moving. It's restraint, not as punishment, but as posture. Picture a wallet full of cash, but a mind full of craving. That is not wealth. Now picture the opposite, a modest account, but a calm, deliberate heart. That is what the Stoics called freedom, the unshackled mind, not the unshackled wallet. So ask yourself, what 3 constraints could actually make you freer? What can you subtract today that would give you more time, more clarity, more sleep? This isn't minimalism for its own sake. It's freedom with intention. Freedom without virtue is just another master. And every day you delay this reckoning, the cage becomes harder to see. We speak of freedom as if it's a finish line, something granted after hard work or earned through external success. But the Stoics never treated freedom as a gift. For them, it was a craft, something internal, trained in silence, built like muscle. It wasn't about escape, it was about mastery, of desire, of attention, of time. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So what does this mean for you, sitting there with your budget half built, your ambitions tangled in bills and doubts? It means you're not broken, you're just untrained. And freedom, real freedom, begins when you start training your will like a warrior sharpens his blade. That training happens when you say no with wisdom, spend with temperance, decline offers with courage, and share with justice. These are not vague ideals. They're the 4 columns of the Stoic temple: wisdom, temperance, courage, justice. In modern life, the noise is endless. the temptations are engineered. Kahneman taught us that your environment shapes your choices far more than willpower alone. So you design your surroundings, you remove the clutter, you remove the auto-renewals, you set visual limits, you create rhythms that calm your system. You don't rely on discipline, you build a life where less discipline is needed. Because freedom isn't found in having no limits. It's rediscovered in limits that align with who you are when you're most whole, most rested, most honest. This isn't about chasing freedom, it's about remembering it. Beneath the noise, beneath the habits, beneath the cravings, there's a version of you that already knows what matters. A you that is disciplined, quiet, and deeply anchored. And that version is not gone, it's just waiting for you to listen. This video is for educational purposes only. Always consider your circumstances with care. Let that be the reminder. You're not here to buy freedom. You're here to build it, one quiet, intentional decision at a time.